To make this project work as Eureka Discover Server, I will need to open main application file, and I will need to add there one new annotation that is called Enable Eureka Server. So I will open main application file, and right here above the main class, I will add one more annotation. Like this, Enable Eureka Server, and I will need to import this annotation. And the next step will be to update application properties file. So I will go to source main resources folder and open up application properties file. The very first property that I will configure is the port number on which I want my Eureka server to run. Most commonly, Eureka server is run on port number 8761. So I will use this port number. Server.port equals 8761. Although this does not need to be this exactly same port number, you can start Eureka server on a different port number if that port number is available. So by default, Eureka also tries to register itself, so you need to disable that property as well. If there are more than one instance of Eureka running, then Eureka instances, they can register with each other, but because at this moment I'm going to start only one instance of Eureka server, I'm going to set that property to false. So the property is eureka.client.register with Eureka equals to false. Like this. Now, the next property is to tell Eureka client not to fetch registry from other Eureka servers. And the property is eureka.client fetch registry equals to false. Eureka client.fetch registry equals to false, like this. Now, in some cases, it is preferable for Eureka to advertise IP addresses of microservices rather than their host names. So the next property is to tell Eureka to use IP address instead of a host name when microservice registers with it. Eureka instance prefer IP address equals true, like this. This is very helpful, especially when running Eureka and microservices on a local developer's computer, especially on the Windows environment. The host name on developer's computer can be different and it might not be properly readable. So to avoid issues with host name, I like to configure this property and set it to true. And in this case, when my microservice registers with Eureka, it uses its IP address rather than its host name. But if you still like to use host name, then you can configure host name explicitly this way. Eureka instance host name equals and then the host name. If you are running it on localhost, then you type here localhost. But I will use IP address instead, so I will comment it out for now, like this. And the next property is Eureka service URL. Let me type it out first. Eureka client service URL default zone equals to localhost port number and Eureka. Now, this configuration is needed to configure Eureka client to register with Eureka server. And you will see this configuration used in other microservices that we're going to create as well. Now, we're starting this Eureka project as a single standalone server that does not register as a client with other Eureka servers. And it seems like this configuration should not be required. I have tried skipping this property and I have tried running Eureka server without setting this property and it still worked very well. But in this video course, I will include this property here because it is there in Eureka server documentation. So notice that the default zone is pointing to same host and same port number of Eureka as the local instance. Because I'm running the server on localhost, I use localhost here, and because Eureka server is running on port 8761, I use 8761 here /Eureka. Alright, so now I'm ready to save my application properties file, save my main application file, and I'm ready to run this application and see if it works. So to run Eureka Server as a Spring Boot application, I will select my project, do right mouse click, and then choose Run as Spring Boot application. So that should start Eureka Server, and I should be able to open a new browser window and go to this URL, localhost port number. No need to type Eureka for the dashboard, just localhost and the port number. If you open it in a browser window, you will see the dashboard. So I will bring in a browser window and I will go to localhost and the port number 8761. Hit enter, and here's my Eureka dashboard. Now at this moment it does not have any microservices listed as registered clients, but in the following video lessons we will create a few microservices and we will make them register with Eureka, and we will see them listed here on Eureka dashboard. Alright, so let's continue.